My name is Omar. I'm one of your podcast hosts, and I'm also a lawyer at Treadstone Law. For most Canadians looking to buy, sell, or refinance real estate in Ontario, a lawyer is the last thing on their mind. They're busy dealing with banks, mortgage brokers, realtors, and when everything is said and done, they look for a law firm to finalize the transaction. At this stage, if something is broken, it's hard to fix. And believe me, I'm a real estate lawyer, I've seen it all. How do you gain the right help early on in the process? Speaking to a lawyer one-on-one can get real expensive real quick, and it's probably not the best idea. That is why Treadstone Law has launched several resources for Canadians to have access to the information when they need it the most. You can sign up for one of our online workshops or to our email list to receive information you need when you need it. This information is designed for you to be better prepared and avoid costly mistakes. And for a limited time, it's free. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click the link below. My name is Omar. I'm one of your hosts here. Today we have a very special episode. This is our first episode in our series honoring the Canadian Armed Forces with special guests who are either current or previous service members and are now in the real estate industry. So today on our episode, we have a very special guest, someone I've known for about 10 years now, an extremely talented individual with a very interesting background. Monis Siddiqui is a sales representative at Century 21. He's been in the industry for almost 13 years now, and he is also a member of the Canadian Armed Forces. He's part of the Royal Regiment of Canada and has served in the Armed Forces for 8 years. Monis was a section commander for 4 years, which involved training new military recruits, and he has participated in several humanitarian missions as well. Monis, thank you for your service and welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me.
How's it going? How was the drive out to work this morning?
The drive was clear. I'm 15 minutes away, so it's not too bad. I get in my car. There was light snow today. Uh, Turn on my podcast and just drive.
Honestly, this morning, I was in my mind, I was thinking, okay, we're in spring now, and then I look outside and there's snow, and
I know
it's
it
like,
was a shocker.
I was like, we're finally there. It's almost clear weather ahead, and then Canada just reminds you that you're in Canada, right? So,
I
look,
don't know why 2 days ago I put away my snow brush. I was cleaning up my car, and I'm like, yeah, we're not gonna get that much snow. So this morning I had an umbrella in my car, and I used a folded umbrella to clean the snow off my windshield.
nice. Okay, so tell us. I mean, I guess I gave a little bit of a background. So 13 years real estate, 8 years in the military, still currently a service member. So tell us how this started. So 13 years. You have a lot of experience, but you're not that old of a guy. So 13 years is
Yeah.
still a lot to have under your belt, right? So how did it start, I guess?
Absolutely. So I'll tell you, it was all my dad. Uh, so I was after high school. I was in college. I remember I was going to a job interview at Best Buy. I had applied to a job and they had reached out, and I was going there, and I was getting ready, my in my suit and tie. And my dad asked me, "What am I doing?" And I said, "Hey, I'm going to an interview." He's like, "Where?" Best Buy. And he's like, "No, forget Best Buy. Get your real estate license." I'm like, "Dad, I'm 18 years old. No one's gonna buy homes from me. Let me just do this." But my dad has been a lifelong entrepreneur, and he wouldn't have it. He's like, "Listen, I will pay you for you not to go to Best Buy interview and sign up for real estate instead." And he convinced me. So I was 18 years old, and I logged in. 18 was the minimum age, and I started my course. And by before my 19th birthday, I was licensed. Thereafter, I joined the team. I did my university part time, and I sold real estate part time.
Nice. So how are those? I guess you had a good mentor. You had your dad, which is I think it's great that your dad kind of stepped up and said, look, like you can get this hourly job, or you can start this career, start building real. Even though I wouldn't say like Best Buy is going to help build skills too, but real
Of
estate is
course.
helping you build kind of these skills that for the rest of your starting a career rather than a part-time job for school, right? So how was that?
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it had to do with the long term planning. If you're planning on being in the corporate world in long term, then sure, that Best Buy would have been the correct avenue for gaining relevant experience. Because my dad wanted so badly for me to be an entrepreneur like him and be in the business stream and be self-employed, for me, that part served as the right thing to go,
So
as the right route to go.
So how were the first few years like? So you're 18 years old. So most at that age, most kids they're not thinking of anything close to. They don't know what a realtor does probably. So how were those first few years for you? Like to
I'll tell you, it was a grind. It was a grind. Not many people want to trust their life savings to an 18-year-old. That's I wouldn't, and I don't blame them. So I worked with other senior agents as their errand boy, so to speak, and I did all their legwork, and I got a little cut from the deals. So while that cut wasn't wasn't career making, but at the same time, it was like a part time job. It was like any part time job. So I made what I would have made at Best Buy. I wasn't making a lot, but I was gaining relevant experience. I was gaining industry experience. I was seeing the industry go up and down. I was seeing really experienced and successful people work in front of me and learning by just being close to them, just being under them.
something you can't learn like just by in a book, right? It's you need that.
Absolutely, soft skills.
Yeah, you need that kind of coaching and that experience. So you mentioned the industry, you saw the ups and downs too. How do you feel that it's changed since you started? Has it changed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has changed 13 years ago. Mind you, maybe the industry changed, or the industry changed a bit and I changed a bit. I also now see the world through a different lens. I've matured more. I have traveled the world. I've seen, I've, I've, I've been in the military, so that, I've dealt with different people. I've dealt with different situations. Um, Industry as a whole, from a real estate point of view, it has saturated in terms of realtors. So there's a lot more realtors now than there were back then. Mind you, houses are also a lot more expensive than they were back then. Back then, you had to sell 5 houses a month to stay aboard, right? Today, you can do it with two. So that's that that's the biggest change. Also, I think it's the saturation which has led to a lot of fraudulent practices for lack of a better word. There's a lot of stuff that happens that's a lot of the public doesn't know, um, because now we're dealing with such large sums of money. Affordability, especially in the GTA area, is a factor. A big factor is a problem for most. So when you are running so close to the edge and so close to the affordability line, whether you can get into a house and the difference is, one little lie can make the difference of you being a homeowner or renting for the next 5 years, right? So people lie a lot more. People lie on their job. We come across. I never did that before, but now we come across fake job letters, fake pay stubs, um, and it's the experience that kind of um, helps you swift through them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
dealing with people has gotten a little trickier now.
Yeah.
Back then, it was a lot more straightforward.
Okay, I guess people are getting more desperate too. Like you were saying, affordability. How does someone that just that starting their life in this economic environment with the salaries afford a house, start saving? What's the bottom end of the market? Like 500,000, 600,000 maybe, like the cheapest house on average.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
what do you have to save?
One
200,000?
bedroom condo, 600,000.
Yeah, I mean, and unless you're paying that insurance, the and paying less than 20% down, you're never going to be like it's impossible for someone to save that much of a down payment without being in the market. So there
Absolutely.
are pressures. So that makes sense. I didn't know that this was increasing. I guess by the time it comes to our table, we're at the last stage of the process. The mortgage brokers kind of dealt with a lot of those things. Realtors dealt with it. So we get to it when everything is kind of sifted through, and we're doing more of the checking title, making sure there's other fraudulent issues not going on. But
Yeah.
I guess that does make sense. The financing side,
No.
it's getting difficult.
Yeah, the
So
financing side, that's
yeah,
the biggest problem, right?
yeah.
Finance is the biggest challenge that people face right now. If you're not, if you're, especially if you're a first time home buyer, if you've had a house in the past and that house that maybe your parents bought for 300,000, which is now worth 1.3, now you're sitting on that $1 million equity, and your parents can afford, which is happening a lot now for millennials, that parents are taking some of the equity out of their house and helping the millennials get into their first house. But what if you're a first generation immigrant, right? What if your parents didn't buy a house way back when? What if you don't have somebody with $1 million equity sitting there being able to help you? In which case, and the market is going to continue going up. So a lot of people um, either go through the partnership route where two two friends would get together, be on the same mortgage, and buy a house, um, own it for 3 years, watch the house go up, and in 3 years they can sell it, take the equity out, and each of them have enough equity for for their first individual house, um, or they're going through the unfortunately the fraudulent route. The mortgage frauds are a huge problem in my opinion. But then again, that's
Mm-hmm.
uh, there's enough desperate people out there.
Yeah, we'll get to we'll dive a little deeper into the market later in the session.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I wanted to also just focus on your career a little bit more. So
Yeah,
just to get back on that too, you spent 8 years in the military, right? Eight was it eight, right? Not six. Yeah, 8 years in the military,
yeah,
and then 13 years as a realtor. And that military stint started in between your career as a realtor, right? So you became
yeah.
joined afterwards. How do you feel there were any skills that you gained during your time in the military that you felt transferred over to your experience as a realtor, right? And then they benefit. And if so, like what were they? What do you think they were?
Absolutely. Look, so I was part of the reserve force. We So I was doing real estate part time, and I was doing military, right? And in the military, so for the most of us, we get to decide who we associate with, right? On day-to-day basis, we each to some extent have a say in who we deal with day-to-day basis. We get to decide our tribe, so to speak, right? Like-minded individuals attract together. You become friends with people. You go to university with hundreds of others like you, and you walk away with a group of 20, 25 friends. Um, and then that's how your entire life progresses. You attract like-minded people, and if someone's not for you, you say, you know what, that person is not for me for whatever reason, right? Different personality types. In the military, you don't have that luxury. In the military, literally, uh, you get who you get, and you have to learn to work with them. And you have a job to do, so you learn a lot of soft skills, a lot of interpersonal skills. You learn how to deal with different kinds of people. You learn to put your feelings about the person aside and focus on the task in front of you. In the military, I remember, um, this is this is weird, but when I first started in 2013, I remember the first day of orientation, we were in a big hall, and we would see, and I could notice like-minded people kind of make cliques, right? Guys who are from Toronto would be like in one corner, kind of talking, and they looked and talked similar. Guys who are from out of town, who are from the suburbs or from farmlands, or just maybe out of the province, they have their own um, clique or the hangout area. That's how the first week was. But after the first week, we were all jumbled together. We were all divided into sections, and you had to learn to work with them. And you either succeeded with them as a group, or you failed as a group. So if there's a section of 8 and one person isn't pulling their weight, then the entire section suffered. So slowly, like-minded people, whether it was race or any other factor that helped them relate to each other, that didn't matter to them as much anymore. At the end of the day, it all became about performance. Within a month, those old cliques didn't matter anymore. The ones that formed in the first week, within a month, it was all about production, all about performance. If you performed in your section, you pulled your weight, people liked you, you got along with everybody. It had nothing to do with your race, your religion, your background, the way you talk, the way where you came from, your education, none of that mattered. If you performed, people liked you. If you didn't perform, you were you were called a mouth breather and you would be written up. So
Yeah, so I
um,
mean, I think also like it's easy to overlook how like the emphasis of the experience you're talking about, because people might like the first instinct might be, okay, in a job you're forced to be in an environment where you have to trust people you don't know, but in a job you're never going to be in a position where those people have to protect you, right? And those people have to, like, your life is it depends, and their lives, everyone is intertwined. It depends on everyone being like forgetting about all those things and saying, look, we all have a common goal, we're a group, we're together in this, so let's get through this together, right? And that's something you don't get in an everyday experience. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
absolutely. So you start a new job, you see a person, even if you don't like them, you know in your mind you only have to tolerate them for 9 to 5.
yeah.
You are going to be you're going to be judged on your work alone. If that person doesn't work, you're like, good, that person doesn't work, he's going to get fired, I don't like him anyway, great. Right? Military is different. Military, you want everyone in your section to perform, otherwise you are going to suffer. You can be your best self, but if someone else isn't pulling their weight, you're going to suffer. So what do? You quickly finish your work and you go over and say, hey, do you need a hand with something? Do you need a hand making your bed? Do you need a hand with something? Something I can do to eventually make my life easier,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that inevitably, creates a deeper bond where you're helping somebody polish their boots or make their beds, do their laundry. So you come to rely on others, whether you like them or not,
Mm-hmm.
on a whole different level. And then eventually, we're all humans. You know what? If you're around somebody enough, you see their weaknesses, but if you really want to, you also start to see the good in people, the good in them, their strengths. Their strengths may not be as apparent as someone else's who can do 100 push-ups, but they can have their own strengths. And once you start to live close with each other and spend a significant time and see each other's more hidden strengths, you develop a deep bond. And that really helps you build soft skills, which in my mind help you throughout your life. You never
What kind of
forget that.
soft skills would you say? Like, what do you have examples?
Soft skills would be, just dealing with different personalities. You know that someone might have the best heart, but they're quick to anger, right? They have a short fuse. You learn that, hey, this person has a short fuse. It's not their fault. They're an amazing person, but they get worked up fast, but they also come down fast, right? So you say, okay, you know what? When this person's going to get worked up, I'm not going to reply in the moment. I'm just going to hold back. I'm going to wait for that person to come down, right? Another example is some people need just a little bit more encouragement. Others don't. Others are self-sufficient. They are self-motivated. So you learn to not filter, but rather um, judge personality types better and learn how to work with different personality types, how they need to be dealt with.
Makes sense. And I guess that also helps you take account of yourself too, right? Like, oh, what are those? Which of those things do I have, and how do I deal with myself in when I'm
Oh,
navigating experiences?
absolutely, 100%. You know what? Being in the army, being around people, everyone is vocal for the most part. We are all very, I don't want to say confrontational, but we are more outspoken. So I've had many people tell me or confront me on my weaknesses. So I didn't go through the bubble. I didn't go through the life in a bubble, um, not looking at my own weaknesses, where everyone around me is like-minded, so they are, they're only saying good things about me, right? Um, they have nothing bad to say about me.
Yeah.
When you work with people and they really, they let you know when you mess up, you understand your weaknesses a lot better.
And that's true loyalty, I think. I think that's a real, like, someone who actually comes up and says, "No, I'm not gonna sugarcoat." Like, there is the value to that sugarcoating within circumstance, but as a long term kind of solution towards someone's problem, I don't think so. I think it's the person that says, "No, look, this is a problem. You should fix this." They're being more loyal to you because of that reason, right? So that's
Absolutely, call
yeah,
a spade,
yeah,
right? I think dealing with that, going through that experience it has made me a lot more straightforward. I am now a lot more. I'm quicker to call people out if there's something wrong, and I'm quicker to get to the point. I also don't like to beat around the bush if there's a problem or if there's something that needs to be said. I've, in my experience, I've learned that it's better to just say it and deal with it rather than, you know, um, talk in circles.
and then so I guess to tie it together. So you talked about how you had a good experience, just kind of learning about yourself, learning about other people, how to handle different kind of personality types, different social and environments through the soft skills. Now, as a realtor, what circumstances do you think that helps you succeed? Right? Where are those skills applicable? Do you feel at the most? I guess within your career.
Okay, so where they where they apply the most is when dealing with different clients. There are many personality types, or as my coach says, there's four main personality types. Um, you learn to deal with each personality type, how they need to be dealt with. Some clients they need encouragement, others don't. There's some clients where if you encourage them too much, they push back for no reason. But they just if you encourage too much encouragement in their mind says, red siren, red flag, fast talking salesperson, defend. So they're defending when no one's attacking them. So those are the people where you really have to, give your piece, give your opinion, and back out. Um, Oftentimes, you deal with couples or clients where the husband has one personality type and the wife has different personality type, and now you somehow have to work with those two personality types, and you have to help these two very different personality types make the biggest
Purchase decision in their
and
life.
biggest decision or the most expensive decision of their life,
Yeah.
right? You're really dealing with their life savings, so that's not always easy.
So you're like a therapist.
Yeah. Honestly, it is. You somehow you become a therapist. It's weird.
Yeah. Wife wants one thing, husband wants one thing. Mona says, "No, this is what you guys need." They're like, "Okay, fine. Let's go down this
Well,
road."
I hope. You know what? I wish it was that easy. I wish they
Yeah.
would just listen to me. I said, okay, you know what? Mona says we'll buy this house, so we should buy
Monas knows. No, but in the end, I mean, I think it's a slow, gradual process. You bringing them to kind of a medium, probably, but that's interesting. Okay, so
Absolutely.
I guess moving on. So we talked about what the skills that you felt you learned from your career in the military and how they've helped you. Now, generally speaking, outside of the things that you mentioned, so you mentioned kind of good soft skills in terms of dealing with different personality types. Or do you think there's any other characteristics that make a good realtor? Like what makes a strong realtor?
Personal. So now this is I'm blowing my own horn, but mental resiliency. Okay, you have to be resilient. You can find the perfect house. Your client can be super excited. They will push themselves and place the best offer, and then you don't get the house. Everyone's disappointed. Next day, you will see another house. They're really excited. They're ready to sign the check. Take the leap again. Again, you don't get the house. So there's a fatigue, um, and their emotions for clients. Who are the ones paying for it? Who are the ones who will be living in the house? Their emotions are a lot more involved than mine are, right? So I have to be. If I'm not mentally resilient myself, if I get discouraged easily, if I become down, and if I say, no point in reaching for a detached house, fine, I guess let's just buy you semi-detached. I'm just saying an example. Um, if I can't pick myself up, how am I supposed to help them up, right? So you yourself have to have your personal strength to get up. All right, there was a bidding war, you lost, dust off, move on. Uh, you have to have the flexibility that you like the house, but great, there's something else that you like better. All right, let's place an offer on that Monday and the other one on Tuesday. Let's see which one we get, right? You have to adapt and overcome. So if there's an issue, you like a house, you put an offer on it. Now before closing, the heater isn't working, the furnace or the AC, or the sellers. It has happened where the buyers aren't able to get a mortgage. Now, last minute, what are you doing, right? How can you help them? All of this, this goes in, and if you're dealing with somebody who isn't mentally strong himself, they're not going to be able to. It sounds rough to say, but uh, the amount of realtors there are outside, there's about 70,000 realtors right now in GTA. And out of 70,000, a rough number of full-time, a rough estimate is only 6% of those are full-time realtors.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So while being a part-time realtor worked fine 10 years ago, when the market was very slow and very steady, in today's environment, it is it's not gonna. You don't get. You should. You cannot rely on somebody who does not who's an engineer 9 to 5, and he gets off work and then he shows you houses. Okay. So you have to be with somebody who's flexible, who's able to adapt, overcome, and who's in the market every day, 24/7. Lack thereof. It's like,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I don't want to say 24/7, but you know what? The job turns 24/7 somehow.
Yeah, right. Like,
You somehow you end up dreaming about your clients
no,
and their problems.
no, and,
It
and
happens. It happens.
and I find you guys, like the realtors, like the ones that are in it, like you, like someone who's committed, like Monis, is there all day too, right? We're getting texts at like 10 p.m. Hey, I need you to check a status certificate or something, or we have an offer that got accepted. Can you whatever it is? You guys are grinding, right? And that's how the client really knows that it's like that you're in the industry, and then you have the experience to provide them kind of that journey or that navigate through that industry, as opposed to I'm in the industry on Fridays, so I'll give you a little
No,
advice. But
absolutely.
yeah.
I've got like 25 WhatsApp groups for different buyers, where it's a WhatsApp group of me, husband, and the wife. Okay. And now they are laying in bed, 11 at night or after midnight, just searching for properties and sending screenshots on that WhatsApp group. In the morning, the husband looks at the group and the husband's like, no, I don't, maybe not this one, maybe not that one. Now I wake up to, I don't know, 200 messages every morning, and I'm going through them. I'm going through those WhatsApp groups where the husband and wife even don't even agree with each other's choices.
Yeah.
And in the middle, I have to be the one to say, all right, guys, this is not for us. This is out of our range. This looks great on the surface, but trust me, the neighborhood isn't good. I have to
Yeah.
play that middleman between them,
Yeah.
and that's, yeah, again, as you said, therapist.
Therapist, and then
Yeah,
you were saying how you have to manage emotions, if make sure people don't get drained and exhausted from this competitive market. So it's like almost like a motivational speaker and a therapist. So several different jobs jobs here at the same time. So uh, I guess to close off the first part of our discussion, so if I'm looking for or what's the process look like if someone wants to work with your firm? So what, like, is there a particular process? Like, how do they get in touch with you, or how do they sign up? I guess is the process.
first step is, I would encourage everyone to interview multiple realtors. I am not going to say go on monis.ca, that's monis.ca, and call me, but you should.
He
I'm
should be
not
your
going to say
first
that.
interview, and
Of
and
course.
and your last, but interview.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Make me the last interview, not the first.
Sounds good.
Uh, if you already have somebody lined up after me, I know you're not going to commit to me. But also, I want you to see what else is out there before I'm given a chance to say my piece. Um, it's human. We are all different people. We all have different personalities. So while I like myself, I think I'm a great person. You may not. You and me may not gel like that. Okay, you may not feel like Mona's the best realtor out there. I think I'm the best realtor out there. You may not. You may disagree. Okay,
I think he's a
so
great realtor too.
oh, thank you. Always, just like for any job, always interview several. It is better if you interview people who you have been referred by somebody you trust, right? So it is always better to interview someone who you at least have been referred by somebody, so you have one positive connection rather than calling somebody off of a bus bench. Um, and from there, talk to them. Talk to them. Find out how much production do they do, right? How long have they been in the business? What was their last year like? What houses have they sold recently? How many clients are they working with right now, right? And there's two, honestly, when it comes to that, there's two extremes. You can go for somebody who's done nothing. Excuse me, I don't want to say nothing, but who hasn't uh, been in business very long. You can go with them, and they can give you their undivided attention because they only have two clients. So you will have their undivided attention versus you can go for someone who's super popular in your neighborhood, has all the bus benches, has millions of pop-up ads on Facebook, paid advertising, and all those things. But those guys, the quality of service that you get is often not what you would hope for because that person is dealing with 200 clients. To them, you're just one of 200, so take it or leave it. They don't have time for your to be your therapist. They will say, this is the house, you want it, let's look at it, you want to offer it, okay, great, let's buy it, that's it. So you have to find something in the middle, whatever works for you, for your personality style, for your lifestyle.
Makes sense. So if this video was enough for people to decide, I think Monis is for me. How do they get in touch with you?
Okay, for me, monis.ca.
Monis.ca.
Monis. Monis.ca, easiest way to remember, monis.ca,
Okay.
or my phone number is 647-526-0333.
If you're looking to retain Treadstone Law, it's never been easier. Our entire process is online. From completing the retainer to your signing appointment, everything is done from the comfort of your own home. No need to take time off to visit a lawyer's office for your signing, when you can complete everything from your living room table. The best part is you don't have to pay anything when you're retaining our firm. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click on the link below to retain us today. Enjoy the podcast. Okay, so I guess for the next phase, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the real estate process. So you have 13 years of experience, worked with tons of clients, and you've navigated. I think with the interesting perspective you can bring is you navigated the different stages of the industry too, right? As the industry has been climbing, you've been there too. Before the industry reached the height today, you were there. So within the context of all that, so what do you think when someone is buying real estate, what is the biggest mistake you found that people make, whether it was always happening or something that maybe this new industry has brought on over the last few years?
Okay, so
Or
the
I
two
guess to bring it back a little bit, what's the biggest mistake first time buyers make? Let's just start with that.
first time, okay, all right. So the two mistakes that I can very clearly identify when it comes to first time home buyers is first, not understanding the true and total cost of ownership. Okay. 20 years ago, we weren't spending such a large chunk of our monthly paycheck towards the house. Today, at least in GTA, real estate has become by far the largest expense, and we are all pushing towards
max number. So there's no buffer room. Okay, we are spending to the top of our limit. So one of the mistakes they make is one of the mistakes that first time home buyers often make is not understanding the true cost of or total cost of the ownership. So not just the mortgage, but the insurance, okay, the closing costs, mortgage insurance, okay, maintenance. If you live in a condo, you give a month. It's easy to factor in that $400 $500 of monthly maintenance fees. But if you're in a house and you are living paycheck to paycheck and you are putting everything in your mortgage, and now all of a sudden an expense comes up and you haven't been saving up for that expense, you haven't been putting aside $100 $200 aside for the maintenance, and now all of a sudden you're hit with a $10,000 bill, that can be crippling. Um, we often don't understand that um, if you miscalculate all the total costs of ownership, you become really, the term is house poor. Okay. Um, First time home buyers, almost everybody is almost expected, but first time home buyers in Toronto, when they buy, they go through this period of being house poor where so much of their paycheck is going towards mortgage and the total cost of ownership that they often don't have enough money saved up for stuff like going out, stuff like personal savings, um, emergencies, um, and I've seen too many people at that point start to rake up their credit cards, which again, credit card is a death trap. If you get caught up in the cycle, it's very hard to break free from it.
I think that was
So
also.
that would be
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
You
I
go
said
ahead.
that would be the first mistake.
Hmm.
Okay, that would be the first mistake. Um, Second mistake is people often are very ambitious about what they can get for their given budget, and they spend too much time looking. Okay, so I've had clients who have been looking for 6 months, and in 6 months, if last year what I showed you 6 months ago, if 6 months ago whatever I showed you for 800,000, if you didn't like that, then please understand that 6 months later, you are only going to get less for the same 800,000. You're not going to get more. Okay. So yes, it is important to look at several houses, do your homework, educate yourself on what's out there, and don't buy the first house that you look at. But spending too much time looking means that if you're already towards the end, towards the top end of your affordability, if you come to me and say, Monis, I am pre-approved for 900,000. All right. And I'm showing you houses that are, listed at 800 and they're going to sell for 9 around. And you don't like those. Guess what? The house that was 900 today, 2 months later, that same house is 925. So you can't even get what I showed you as your first house, which you didn't like now anymore. Now I'm only going to show you worse and worse and worse, simply because your 900 cannot keep up with the market expansion. Average salary grows in Toronto, average salary grows at 2%. Average real estate price in the worst, in the most conservative way,
20.
goes up. Exactly. You know what? Goes up 1% a month. That's
Yeah.
a very conservative
Yeah.
estimate,
Very
right?
conservative, but
So if
yeah.
yeah, if the house they're going up 1% a month, then there's an opportunity cost. There's a cost of waiting. You are gonna, on that $900,000 house, which you say no because you don't like the kitchen or the finishes or the driveway you want it a certain way or the size of the backyard, you let go of those things every month. Your affordability is going down by 9,000. If you spend 6 months looking on a conservative level, on a very conservative estimate, in 6 months you can afford $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 less than what you could 6 months ago. So that would be the second mistake that first-time homebuyers often make.
Yeah, I think those are important points. They really so I guess the first one was the understanding their budgets, right? The closing costs. And I thought of something too back in around I think 2012 when I was helping my dad. He was looking for an investment property in Toronto. So he was just like we were looking together, and then if you were looking at condo buildings, if a condo building had condo fees at like $300 to $400, that was like the high end. Like that was like this is like the super expensive condo fee buildings. Now, 300 to 400 is like normal or below average, right? It's like
That's below average.
expect 600 700 bucks at least. And people aren't thinking of that when they're looking at a property price, that this is another mortgage payment pretty much, right? It's another, like, what is it? Like a couple of $100,000 maybe in mortgage financing that you have to pay monthly without that benefit. So definitely something that we find that clients aren't thinking about as much, but then the realtors obviously are good at like going through that process, giving that perspective of, look, you need to look at everything, not just that number. And the other side, I also thought of how hard this it must make your job with the how the industry right now, the norm is just pricing really low and then expecting people to come in, and then you want a bid war, right? But then your client's coming to you saying, no, but it's listed at that. Does that happen still, or?
Oh, absolutely. It happens, especially with the first time home buyers. It happens all the time. And you know what? This is where experience matters. This is where it is important to have a realtor with experience and knowledge to defend yourself or your interests. There is no set number of by which every property is underlisted by. There's no formula that, hey, if it's listed at 800, it's going to sell at 900. If it's listed at 900, it will sell for 1 million. There's no set number. Okay, so your realtor actually has to know the market for you to tell, no, this property is underlisted by 100,000. That property is underlisted by about 150,000. That property is underlisted by 300,000, which is normal on my street. And this is such a silly thing. On my street, next street over, a house sold, and the realtor who sold it put a big sign on it that says sold $475,000 over asking. And I cannot stand that. Every time I drive by it, I'm like, I cannot stand that board, because that board, it's either the buyer's going to feel like a sucker, right? Or the seller's going to feel amazing. But you know that house was, I mean, I can list something at $1 and sell it for $1 million, and then advertise myself that, look, I'm the best agent ever who sold $1 million over asking, right? So this is where experience comes into hand. Comes into hand. You have to know what you're dealing with. Your client can love a property, and if you are wrong in your estimate, you say, you know what, the neighbor sold for 120 over asking, so for on this house, we're going to sell 120 over asking, and the house sells for 130 over asking, and your client misses it by $10,000. It doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out very good.
But I think at some level, like, no matter how much you say this, clients are gonna come, because there's that hope, right? Like, what I find what happens, like, one of my friends, I think he was looking, and he was talking about how they're like in his budget there or whatever. Like, he was complaining to me, and I was saying you have to look like kind of what's more reasonable. Like, speak with a realtor, get them to help you. And he was saying, no, like, it's possible that they'll sell it at that price. Like, there is that chance that maybe they'll sell around that price. Who knows why they list it then? So people have that.
So this is where unexperienced realtors really do clients injustice. And this is where, yes, it sounds, because you can, this is where trusting the person comes into play. You have to trust them, because understand that when you buy the house, everyone knows that when you buy a house, the real estate agent is going to get paid. So if you don't trust that person, then every house you walk into and the realtor's telling you that, hey, this is a good deal, in your mind, you don't really trust him. You're saying, you know what, this guy just wants to get paid. He's only shown me 10 houses. He doesn't want to show me 10 more. He just wants me to buy the first house, which meets the bare minimum quota. So you know what? No, I'm going to keep looking, because something better will come around, right? That agent, if he is honest and sincere to you, then it doesn't matter whether you see 10 houses or 20 houses. He gets paid enough to compensate for his time. But if you don't trust him, then you're not going to trust him when you like a property. You're not going to trust him when the time comes to place an offer, because you will feel that your realtor, who you can't fully trust, keeps telling you to put more and more money down on the table, more and more money on the number, right? I mean, on the paper, right? And you're going to say, no, you just want me to overpay because you get paid. This is where things fall apart. you have to trust the person.
Very, very, very well said. Because then it's like you're wasting both people's time, right? It's
We're all humans.
yeah,
We're all humans. We're all looking out for our best interest. At some point, in this case, uh, you have to trust the person. If you don't trust the person, please get rid of them. You're wasting your time. You're wasting their time. Go out and get somebody who you can gel with and build a connection. Um, there have been cases where I've come across realtors who who really did their own clients injustice by not knowing the market well enough. Okay, um, this wasn't the question, but I will take it there.
yeah.
Um, I dealt with a client last year. I was selling a condo, and the realtor, the buying realtor, got the person to overpay. Okay, now as a selling agent, I'm going to look at the highest number and I'm going to accept it. Okay, the buyer trusted his agent, and his agent said, "You know what? Don't worry, I'll get you a mortgage." So he put the number on the table. I mean, he put the number on the paper. And he got the house, and it was a 90-day closing. So he had 3 months to arrange a mortgage. My sellers had a good tenant, good paying tenants who they evicted. So we got rid of the tenants. The tenants left. The sellers waited for 90 days. And after 90 days, that person didn't close, and he couldn't close. Why? Because his realtor, who promised him to who promised to get him mortgage, his him a mortgage approval, didn't come through. And the buyer calls me crying, just crying, and saying, "Look, that was the money that I put as a down payment on your house was my life savings. I trusted." So the realtor that he trusted, he was a part-time agent. He didn't know what he was doing, or he didn't he overestimated his own condition somehow. I don't want to speculate on what happened there, but that agent was one of the most unprofessional agents I've ever dealt with. He disappeared. Buyers who are now my clients, they keep calling me. They just Googled my name, they got my phone number, and they're calling my cell phone number for this is sometimes it comes to bite me, but it is everywhere. So my cell phone number is available online. A lot of agents, protect against that and resist and only put their office number, but my cell phone's everywhere. Um, they kept calling me and they said, "Please give us our deposit back." And honestly, if it was up to me, I felt bad enough for the people. They gave me their children's medical record. They had two children with severe medical needs, and they said, "Look, this is our only chance to ever own a home. If you don't return our deposit, we cannot buy something else." Meanwhile, my seller, who actually had a vacant property for 3 months, and those 3 months, not only did he pay the mortgage, he also paid maintenance. And the maintenance for that building was about $1,100. So in his mind, he said, "Look, I'm out this much money. There's no way I'm letting go." And the seller was out of luck, and the seller literally took everyone to court. He took me to court, and I'm like, "I have nothing to do with this." It got dismissed, but you know, sucky things happen sometimes.
So
You have to trust the person you're dealing with.
how did it end up playing out? Did it
I don't
resolve?
know.
You don't know.
They're still after the sellers. I had nothing to do with it, so but the sellers are saying no. The sellers ended up selling the property forward to somebody else. They got their money.
They probably got more.
The sellers, yeah, they got more, um, but they didn't get a whole lot more, but they did get more.
Okay.
Um,
What was it?
because the first person did overpay.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah,
first
yeah,
person did over,
yeah.
right? The first person did overpay, um, and they weren't able to get a mortgage. And the other realtor, who was their realtor, went MIA. They kept calling me. They're like, "We cannot reach our realtor who promised us a mortgage." And I'm thinking, that's a guy who is contractually bound by you, and you cannot find him, and yet you are able to Google my name and get my phone number and call me 10 times a day, crying, asking for your deposit back. It sucked. Honestly, it melted my heart when I read the medical records and such. But I didn't have the money, right? I wasn't keeping the money. I couldn't have returned it to them. It was my decision to make.
Yeah, no, no, of course. It
Uh,
puts you in a different. We've had a lot of similar situations because a lot of times these stages also happen, at the final when it's with the lawyer's office, and then financing falls through. Now they're scrambling to get maybe a private lender, and private lender is going to charge, like, they're going to add so much, so $1 million property becomes 1.1 million by the time you pay the private lender and everyone else. So we've definitely seen a lot of these experiences, and at the end of the day, it's difficult because, like you said, your client was out of pocket, right? And your client was spending money, and to them, it's like they're thinking, okay, I've been spending all of this cash, and I had cash flow coming in that I lost. So it's a difficult situation, definitely. And the market doesn't help, right? If the market had kind of was a little bit more slower, reasonable growth, I guess, then you wouldn't have as much of this. So to I guess focus on that a little bit. So affordability is a big issue for first-time home buyers. Do you have any advice? Like, are there maybe particular areas in the GTA you would recommend that are better for first-time home buyers?
There isn't any one area better for first-time home buyer over the other, but what I will say is use a stepping stone. Don't get caught up in the excitement of buying your home, buying your first home. Your first home doesn't have to be your dream home. Okay, this is a silly example. I always paint. This is silly pictures. I think I'm a very visual thinker. So I give this example to my clients. I tell them, look, imagine there's a train going and you need to get on the train. That train is moving at 20% a year, right? And you can only run at 2% a year because your savings or your salary is only increasing at 2%. You have to get on the train now. You cannot, if you don't get on the train now, 2 months later, you will only get on a box which is further behind, not further ahead than the box that you could have gotten on. Now, once you are on the train, you don't have to like the box. Just get on the train. Once you're on the train, now guess what? Now, because the train is moving, you're building equity a lot faster. Your 2% savings versus plus the equity that your house that you didn't like but is still appreciating is going up. And once you're on the train, it is easy to skip boxes and jump ahead. I'm not sure. Like when I was little, we used to go in TTC. I remember as a teenager, not even, middle school, we'd go through boxes. And I don't know why that was the most exciting thing as a kid, right? But think of it like that. Once you're on the train, you can jump boxes with time and slowly get to where you want to be. If you stay off the train, you know what? No, I don't like this. I have 3 kids, so I want 4 bedrooms, so each of my kids can have their bedroom, and I want a backyard because I have a dog. And you keep waiting for that perfect one. Guess what? That train, even if it slows down, so there's a lot of talks about the real estate train slowing down. Even if it slows down, from 20, it is not going to go to 2% a year, right? So it will still be, unless something's happening on your side, unless you are anticipating a big career jump, a big salary jump, maybe getting married where you're going to have access to a second income. Unless any of those things are happening, get on the train as soon as possible. Once you're on the train, then jump boxes. Your first home doesn't have to be your dream home.
I think there's also the other end. I guess we can talk about a little bit more about that later. But even people usually are fearing, okay, train might slow down. Good analogy, by the way. But in the long run, it's always been an upward trend, right? Even when you've had downturns or slight decreases or crashes, even the overall long run for real estate has been up because the dollar is devalued every single year, right? Inflation itself is going to have some kind of impact if you forget actual gains, which you guys are getting or we're getting right now. Mm-hmm. So now we talked about first-time home buyers. First-time home buyers, I think, was an important topic because as you can relate, it's just a different experience when you're working with a first-time home buyer because there's so much more emotions going on, issues, like things, expectations. What about repeat home buyers? Do you think repeat home buyers make different mistakes from first-time home buyers since they've had that kind of I've been through it mindset?
For repeat home buyers, it's often complacency because they're comfortable or they are experienced. They often don't research enough. they often think that they know best. They often think that, especially investors. When I deal with investors, a lot of them have bought 6, 7 properties. So they know the process. But because they're not doing this day in and day out, they have enough confidence to want to drive the vehicle. They want the steering wheel, okay? But they don't have enough knowledge or enough current knowledge of what's happening in the market. A very good example comes to mind. I recently sold a house, um, Warden and Eglinton area, St. Clair area. Warden and St. Clair area. There was a neighbor. He was an investor. He had multiple properties, and his neighbor came up for sale. Okay, so and that's the house that I was selling. Now he really wanted to move his sister close to him, next to him. That was a big thing for him because imagine living next to your sister, her kids, your kids, you know, and he was so adamant about, like, his whole family really wanted that house, and I really wanted it for him. Now, as an investor, he couldn't help but negotiate, and I wasn't trying to rip him off, but I was telling him that, look, this is what it will sell for. And he's like, nope, it will never sell for that much money. You are not being honest with me, and I can only offer you this much. And I said, look, it's up to you. If you want to place a preemptive offer, preemptive is basically before we have the bidding date or the offer date. Um, and he was convinced. And I'm like, look, okay, no problem. If that's your top number, bring it Monday. Okay, bring it on the offer date. If you get the house, you get the house. And he kept calling me. He called me Saturday. He called me Friday. He called me Saturday. He called me Sunday with the same number. And I said, "There's no way I can accept it. I'm telling you, the difference is only $20,000." But in his mind, that $20,000 was the extra $20,000 that I was trying to scam him out of. And Monday came, and I got the offer accepted, which was $30,000 higher than the number I told him. So essentially 50,000 above. So because there was somebody else moving from Vancouver here, and they really wanted the house, and they offered me 50,000 more. And when I told him, he said, "Nope, I don't believe it." He literally told me, like, "No, you don't have. There's no way you have that number."
Yeah.
And the offer was already accepted. I sent him the number. I sent him a picture of the number. I'm like, "Here you go." And he couldn't believe it. He's like, "Oh my goodness!" And he was totally, like, 2 days ago he was arguing for 20,000, yet over here someone else paid me 50,000 more. If he was so savvy, he misjudged by $20,000 on a house that he really wanted. Right? So with first-time home buyers, with investors, or rather experienced buyers, my only recommendation to them would be, I understand you have enough experience. Yes, do what you want, but don't write off experience of the professionals. At least listen to everybody, right? Listen to everyone, understand where they're coming from, and then make a decision.
Yeah, I think it's there's also maybe that need to say to express that, as an investor I have that experience, which I mean, obviously if someone's been investing they have experience, but the realtor and the professionals working throughout the process, the mortgage broker, the lawyer, they do this all day every day, so they have very valuable input to provide you in that process, even though you've been through it 10, 20 times, right, or 50 times, whatever it is. They
Mm-hmm.
still have they've been through it 50 times a month, right? So it's like, well, there is still a distinct difference in that volume of work that you're doing, right? So definitely, I think good advice. So
Yeah. Omar, this is where trust again comes into play. Trust comes into play. You have to trust the person you're dealing with. I'm going to give you an example, and this is such a pertinent example, and this kind of makes realtors look bad. And it is going to it's going to make some people even more skeptical of realtors. But I will give this example nonetheless, because honestly, I feel sincerity and trust is a big factor in this. I was selling a house last year, and the house has been on the market because it was a complete gut job. It needed a significant amount of improvements. Another realtor calls me and says, "Hey, I am willing to bring a buyer. I have a buyer. I'm interested. What can you do on price?" Okay, and the house was listed at 600. We were willing to sell it for 570, and I told the guy, I'm like, "Look, the house has been on the market for a while. Our bottom number, if you bring me 570, we can make a deal. Okay. Now the actual number was different, but I said, look, if you can bring me 570, that is acceptable by my buyer. Excuse me, by my seller. So if you bring me 570, we can make this deal. And he turns to me and he says, Monis, how about I bring you 600, but you add $30,000 to my commission? I did a double take. I said, wait, what are you talking about? He's like, my buyer is willing to pay 600. I'll bring you 600, but you yourself said you're willing to take 570. So you know what? The house has been on the market for a while. I know you're desperate. Sell it to me for 600. Add the extra $30,000, which you were willing to give up anyway, to my commission. And on that house, I was already paying him $25,000 commission. So he wanted to add that $30,000 to his pocket. And it blew my mind. It completely blew my mind. I'm like, how can somebody do that to their own buyer?
Yeah.
You're getting paid enough here. What are you talking about? And I didn't do it. I was like, no, I can't do this. I will do it in writing, right? I will do it in writing. But even then, it didn't sit well with me. I said, look, this doesn't work. What are you talking about? You want me to give you $60,000 commission? That $30,000 of discount that I'm willing to give belongs to the buyer, not to you. But he was just so shameless about it. It blew my mind. I was speechless. I didn't have the gal to be like, what the heck are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
And I wrote it off. But there's people like that. There are people like that. And those are the people that make people lose trust in professionals and in realtors.
Yeah, no, that's true. You hear about it. Maybe you see an article or something, and then you think that something fishy is going on. But at the same time, that's why I think, like you said earlier, it's important to interview the realtors, the mortgage brokers, the lawyers, because then you're getting to know them, and you need to really understand that do they have the same kind of principles and values too, and work ethic that you want, as opposed to someone who's willing to do those kind of things, because at the end of the day, that 30,000 is not just 30,000 for him, ripping off one person. It's that anyone who's buying in that neighborhood now is now comparing against that 600. Otherwise, would have sold 570. So now you're adding to the entire neighborhood, not just that one property. So it's a crime that impacts a lot of people, I guess, is the point.
100%.
So I guess we talked about the mistakes and kind of what first-time home buyers, investors do. Now, age-old question. In today's market, firm offer or conditional offer? What do you think?
It depends on how much you like the house. It depends on what the condition of the house is in. Okay. It depends on what else is available in the market. For the most part, I will say going within a condition isn't going to be acceptable. It is very difficult to get a condition across. The only way the sellers will accept your condition is if you pay them significant more money. Okay. So for example, you have two buyers. One offers you 800, the other offers you 840. And the one that 840, he sounds sincere on the phone. He's like, you know what, I'm qualified, this and that, everything, but I really, really, really need to run by my mortgage broker, and I'm adamant on having a finance condition. So give me 3 days for finance. And the seller thinks, you know what, if waiting for 3 days is going to get me $40,000 more, possibly, then that's worth it. And they may accept an offer 40,000 more in exchange for 3 days. Now that person may walk away. That's the deal, right? That person may walk away. But if that person walks away, sure, in this market, waiting doesn't hurt. In this market, the seller can always say, you know what, I will sell 2 weeks later from now. No problem. I know that I won't have a problem reselling. Okay. Versus, let's say if the two buyers, one came in at 800, the other came in at 805. The one who wants 805 wants 3 days. The one who's 800 is firm. As a seller, 9 out of 10 times, the sellers will say, you know what, we're here to do business. 800, this is firm deal. Once I sign the paper, deal's done. Okay, I will accept. In which case, that $5,000 may not be enough to get you the condition. If you're in a house, if you walk through a property that needs significant upgrades or that needs significant renovations, that is that you already know that it's going to be a complete good job. At which point, you may want to get a property inspection because you yourself are not a tradesperson. You're not a construction worker, right? You're not a contractor. You cannot anticipate the amount of work it's going to go into. So for you, putting a condition might be the only option versus a contractor can walk in, and a contractor he's experienced, and he's going to say, you know what, I know to turn this house around, I'm going to need $180,000. So I am able to put a firm offer. In which case, if you're competing against a contractor that already knows what he's doing, you're not going to have the same confidence as him to place a firm offer. So there's multiple things. Depends on the property, the what else is available on the market. If on the same street there's 5 houses, that often happens. One sells, and then one person puts up the board, the other person puts up the board, and automatically it's like, everyone's like, oh, okay, I'm going to get this much. If on one street you have 5 properties, and you have options, you have sure, go with the offer. I mean, um, go with the conditions.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're not confident in your own finances, if you know that your finances, if your mortgage doesn't get approved or the appraisal doesn't come through, you buy something for 900,000 and the bank says it's only worth 860, that if you have no other way to arrange for that extra $40,000 and you're going to lose your deposit, then yes, if you are that close to failure, to the edge, yes, play on the safe side, put an offer, because for you, there is no safety net. But if you're somebody who says, you know what, I do have money in my RRSPs, or my car's worth this much, I have money in stocks, this and that. If for some reason there's an appraisal gap, worst comes to worst, I am able to tap into my line of credit. I have assets that I can liquidate to fill that gap. In which case, yeah, you kind of do have to play on that little bit risky side to get the house, because you're competing with others who are more certain of their finances. Right now, 20% of all homeowners own multiple properties. Why? Because they use the equity from first to buy the second. And once you have 2 properties, the third one, you're going firm because you have enough equity in the, in backing you, that if something happens, you can cover that 20, 30, 40, $50,000 gap.
Yeah, financing becomes less of a risk. And I think that was very good advice, because often, because of our market, how fast it's growing, and all this competition, I think a common assumption is that you have to go in firm, and you should always go in firm. Whereas, yeah, sometimes, like you said, it's important, or it might be strategically important, or you might be in the position where you're able to go in firm. All those things could contribute to it. But in other circumstances, you should be going conditional, I think is right, a good interpretation of that. And we've seen the negative end of that, where you have the property goes through the process. They have a signed agreement of purchase and sale with the mortgage broker, gets to the lawyer a little bit early. So it's with us now. Maybe they're getting financing, or they have financing conditions in place. Financing falls through. Everything falls apart. You have panic. You have the blames going around everywhere, and then the buyer is now trying to find maybe a new mortgage broker, or maybe going to a bank or private lending, whatever it is, to be able to fix that kind of issue at the end. So I think it's very well said. Depends on circumstance. Look at all the factors, right? Don't ever just do something just because you think that's always the right answer, right? It doesn't work like that. There's
Your realtor needs to guide you through that process. Your realtor has to know more about your circumstances to guide you correctly.
So on the other end of that, what are some steps sellers can make, or what are some important steps sellers can take to avoid issues and even get the best possible price? What do you think, in your experience, is a good process?
So right now, with the market being what it is, it's a good time to be a seller. It's a seller's market. Okay. The biggest mistake that I see sellers making is not spending enough money where you should. For example, you should, you get what you pay for. I really believe you get what you pay for. If you save money on commission and you get a realtor who is a discount realtor, right? You get a realtor who cannot even negotiate his own commission. If you get a realtor, if you interview a realtor and the realtor says, I want 2.5%, and you say, you know what, I will give you 1%, and the person says, okay, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. If somebody cannot even negotiate their own commission, how will they negotiate your interests, right? You need to spend money on staging. You need to spend money on cleaners. Don't skimp. You get what you pay for. There's cleaners that cost $100 and there's cleaners that cost $600. There's stagers that cost $500 and there's stagers that cost $10,000. There's realtors that cost $9.99, right? And then there's realtors who cost 3%. It all depends, and you get what you pay for. Now, trying to save 1% on a commission, for example, let's say it's $1 million. $1 million is a very average number. That's where the average sales are right now. Let's say if you go with the wrong realtor, in order to save 1%, that is $10,000. Okay. Now, trying to save $10,000 of commission, you hire somebody who has no experience or less experience, who cannot negotiate their own interests, let alone your interests, who is in a rush because the realtor who charges 1% has to sell twice or three times as many houses to compete with the realtors who are dealing with, at any point, 1/3 of the workload. Okay, that person will be in a rush. That person will cut corners everywhere. So you get what you pay for. Trying to save $10,000, it is better to actually spend $10,000 so that realtor can market your property right and get you $15,000 in return. Now I'll tell you, selling. A lot of people say, that's a lot of money, and I agree. You know what? If I was in their case, if I didn't know what I know, I would completely agree with that too. But understand that trying to save $10,000 could cost you $15,000. In which case, you're not a winner, you're actually a loser. Okay? How you market something makes a difference. Who you market with makes a difference.
Yeah, no, I
when somebody comes,
go ahead.
if you're in the buying side of things, let's say you're a buyer. So sellers, stop, think like a buyer for a second. You go into a house and you walk into a house and everything is how it should be. Okay, it is marketed properly. There's feature sheets. There's printed, there's printed material distributed everywhere. There's been online paid advertisement. All these things are done. You walk in, nicely staged property, and you say, you know what, this house is 1 million, but I'll put an offer for 120, like $1,020,000. If you're already spending $1 million, that extra $20,000 is not going to matter to you if the property speaks to you, right? That's fair. That's fair, right? If you walk in to buy something that's $100 and you like something better that's $102, are you going to think about it? No, that thing just speaks to you more, right? What makes something speak to you? It's how it's presented, right? The guy who's doing it for $9.99, yes, you're saving $20,000 in commission, but guess what you're losing out on? You're losing out on staging. You're losing out on professional cleaning. You're losing out on professional paid advertising. If selling is your only goal, to be honest, you can sell a house on Kijiji. You could. 100% you could. If somebody was dead set on selling a house themselves or saving on commission, you can take a picture with your iPhone and put it on Kijiji and guarantee you are able to sell it. But you're not going to get the money. You're not going to get top dollar. Trying to save $30,000, $40,000 in commission, you just cost yourself maybe $100,000 less. Right? You could have, had you gone the professional route, you could have gotten $100,000 more, given $40,000 in commission, and still come out $60,000 ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a mistake that sellers make. Sellers, you have to spend money to get money.
And I find that at least, I mean, I know there's often disagreement on this topic, but I find that
Mhm.
the seller's realtor has a harder job than the buyer's realtor, because the seller's realtor has one house that can only be sold, and that house is fixed its characteristics, whereas a buyer's realtor has a budget, right? And that budget can apply to any house. So you're competing for different assets, whereas you only have one asset for sale. And that makes the importance of, like you were saying, having a good realtor even more kind of salient, because now that will make the difference in whether that house will sell for one price that's maybe average, or an above average price, or even a below average price, depending on the quality of the realtor.
Look, this is where experience comes in. For example, in one neighborhood, everything sells for 200,000 above asking, for example. And a realtor comes in and realtor says, you know what, instead of underlisting it by 200,000, I will only underlist it by 50,000, hoping that I can get that much more. Okay, and when he gets the buyer realtor's call, he's unable to defend his price point. Guess what? He actually just costed you money, because everyone that walked through the house, A, maybe not enough people saw it, because today when someone looks at the property, when someone filters properties and he says, you know what, in this neighborhood everything is selling 200,000 over asking. If my budget is 1 million, I will not look at properties that are 1 million. I will be looking at properties that are 850-ish or below. An experienced realtor knows this. An experienced realtor knows this. And an inexperienced realtor may either underprice it by too much or by not enough, both of which are going to cost you people. Both of you are going to cost you visits. Both of you are going to cost you people who come to see your house and place an offer. So the right buyer was willing to pay $50,000 more, but guess what? That right buyer, your realtor didn't capture the right buyer because of a failure in the listing strategy, in the marketing strategy, and the pricing strategy. And it ended up costing you money. You didn't save money going the cheap route. It costed you money.
Well said. I think we're coming to kind of the end of the podcast. We did have a longer discussion, but I think the first two topics
No,
you did it was such a good
I've got time.
discussion.
Probably. Yeah.
It was such a good discussion that it just kept going, and I think
Mhm.
it was very informative for buyers, sellers,
Mhm.
investors, first time home buyers, anyone who's in the market or looking to sell or looking to enter. I think a lot of that information was helpful. I think a lot of the advice that was given. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna, just before we go, I just want to one more time, if anyone wants to contact you, what's the best way?
My cell phone, 647-526-0333, or my website, monis.ca, monis.ca.
Yeah,
It has
should be
my email, my phone number. It should be linked under.
yeah, it is.
Okay.
I can see the layout, but so yeah.
I'm on Instagram. Real Monis one. So if any of you are on Instagram, please follow me and get to know what I do and what my day-to-day business looks like.
Thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can have you on for another session. I think it was a great
Absolutely, I would
conversation.
love to be here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, Monis.
Likewise.
If you're looking to retain Treadstone Law, it's never been easier. Our entire process is online. From completing the retainer to your signing appointment, everything is done from the comfort of your own home. No need to take time off to visit a lawyer's office for your signing, where you can complete everything from your living room table. The best part is you don't have to pay anything when you're retaining our firm. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click on the link below to retain us today.